So all of you guys over by the bar, she's not serving any more drinks right now. There's lots of nice couch space here. Please fill in. Get cozy. It's scary. We are live streaming this on Google, so we're going to wait for our technology to be up and going, and then we'll get moving. If you guys want to hold the mic and keep them on the stand, you're good. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Randall Foster. I work at Naxos. I'm also the chapter chair here in Nashville, as Rich said, and I am very pleased to have such an esteemed group of panelists here. We are fortunate to have Russell Ziecker, Executive Vice President of Lionsgate TV, Frankie Pine, Music Supervisor Extraordinaire, and Allison Jones, Vice President of A&R for Big Machine Label Group here. Today we're going to discuss, thank you. Today we're going to discuss really the synergy behind the hit show Nashville, what went into it, how this equally successful soundtrack spun out and was taken to market, and try to get the really the magic recipe to success here as much as they're able to give it. So before we start, I want a small show of hands. If you're with a record label, can you raise your hands? Okay. Any publishers in the crowd? I know we've got a few. All right. And service providers, also associate members. Okay. Great, just to give us an idea of the demographics of the space. We're going to start by having everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the meat of the questions, and then we'll have some question and answer at the end. So be thinking of questions as we go along. First off, Russell Ziecker, Executive Vice President, Television Music at Lionsgate. Please tell us a few things about yourself.
Hi all. Thanks for having us, Rich. I often refer to it as 5 careers in one vocation, always swirling around music, directly or indirectly. So I've run a label called Milan. I was a music publisher for quite a long time. Music supervisors along the way, management, and I got tricked into television music a long time ago now. It's been 10 years. And it started with 2 shows, which were Weeds and a show for ABC Family called Wildfire. And before I knew it, our really energetic counterparts in the TV group bestowed me with 5 shows and 8 shows and 12 shows. And we currently have 25 shows on 18 different networks or platforms, and 12 are in production, this being one of them. So I also oversee music for Mad Men, Orange is the New Black, a new Kelsey Grammer, Martin Lawrence comedy, Houdini, which we're filming in Budapest right now, Anger Management with Charlie Sheen, Nurse Jackie, a couple others I'm sure I'm forgetting. So that's my day job.
All right, thank you. Allison?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
So I'm the head of A&R, music A&R for Big Machine Label Group, which is Big Machine Records, the Valerie Music Company, and Republic Nashville. And I'm not sure the exact number of artists we have, but we have quite a few. And my main duties are A&R. Most of you guys know what A&R is, but at Big Machine we still function as an indie label. We're very proud to be an indie label. So we all wear about 15 hats, and I've always done A&R. Someone told me not to say the amount of years one time because it makes me look old, but I'm proud to say 22 years of doing A&R. And I've been at major labels, small labels, and even though we have these amazing big artists, we really do still function like a small label. And I think we all have a lot of pride in what we do because we wear 10 different hats. Like, typically A&R people don't interact with music supervisors, but I've known both of these extraordinary music supervisors for years, way before Nashville, because because I've always been lucky enough to wear different hats. And in addition to looking for new artists and overseeing the recording process, and basically anything with A&R. I look for new artists, I look for songs, I oversee the recording budget, make sure the records get made, make sure we hit the deadline. But also, I try to pimp out our music to these fine folks in TV and film. And have always been wonderful enough to listen to our music. Thank
So
you.
it's a pimp and hoe relationship.
Yes.
We being the hoes.
Thank you, yes. Sorry, I took it right down.
Well, last but certainly not least, Frankie.
Hello all. I have been a music supervisor for lots of years, 15 years. I've worked on, I think my very first film was Nurse Betty with Greg Kinnear and Renee Zellweger. And I've done Santa Claus movies, I do television, I did Magic Mike. And then, in television I've done anything from Brothers and Sisters to Hung from HBO to Newsroom on HBO, and a lot of stuff at ABC, including the wonderful show Nashville.
Great. Russell, can you address really, with your overarching role as VP at Lionsgate, and with so many balls in the air, how did you assemble this dream team? Kind of what was the motivation behind it? How did you choose the players? And how did you really set the stage for the beginning of what has now become a great series in its second season?
Well, process-wise, I'm sure Allison can relate to this too, and Frankie, with the shows or the records that we're assembling, each one has its own individual needs and attention span that you need to give it, and this being a music show really blossomed into that dream job that we all want, is to work on a music show. And then once you have it, you wonder how you're going to do it. And my general process with shows overall are, I'll get involved with the script level, and then usually I'm quite involved with the pilot as a music supervisor before I replace myself and eventually bring in a music supervisor for the scripted material, a music editor most times, and a composer. And then I sort of am able to back away from it, having hopefully assembled the right team. But it really comes down to servicing the needs to a vehicle that's not outside of music, but we're not the beginning and the end of it. We're pleasing another vehicle that exists or is in development.
So Frankie, as far as the creative direction musically of the series, obviously you've driven that quite a bit. The A&R and eventual recordings of the music sung on stage and on screen in a lot of cases. Can you comment on that and on how you went about that creative process with Russell and Allison?
Well, I think because I came on the second episode after Russell and Dawn did the pilot, they really set up a good template of where these characters were. And as you read scripts and you kind of become very involved in this character's life. And as you're listening to music, you have like a visual of, yes, this song is completely a Scarlett song, or this song is a Gunner song. And it also depends on the story and where the story is going to go. Because I think that the one thing that the show does really well is we use songs that also tell the backstory of those characters. So, songs that are relevant to what's happening within the show and the story that's happening in that particular episode.
So is it safe to say that you look far and wide for all of this material, or did you stick
We're
with
all
a few
over the
trusted
place.
sources?
No, we go all over the place. We've had so many different writers that have submitted music. We came out here right after we knew we were getting the pickup, and we showed it to every person and their brother at the Ryman and said, if you want to send music, send me a Dropbox. And we just started going through the Dropbox and finding songs that we liked and songs that fit each of our characters, and they just get put on a little playlist on the iTunes, and as stories come up, we, then put those songs into the mix.
And obviously,
it was always a good opportunity too, I think, for publishers, producers, and labels of all sizes, and backing away from it. We don't go to a particular label necessarily to satisfy our needs outside of this relationship, which is more of an aftermarket. Right now they're integrated into our everyday, but what I'm trying to say is it was really evenly balanced between a lot of independence. We were with an independent, I was going to say we evolved into more of a creation for music for our characters now in this season. We're addressing it that way more than just looking for existing materials, which we're in the right place to do that too. Mm-hmm. But we have targets built now. We can identify the vocal range of the characters. We can introduce new characters and talk to people about that. So the targets expand, they shift, it's more defined than it was last season, so we've kind of evolved in that. We get a lot of material from Allison too and her sources.
Yeah, the music comes from every place. Buddy's sending music, Russell sends music, Allison sends music, the writer's got a best friend that wrote a song, that kind of stuff. Their music comes from everywhere. And I feel like on this show, with many of my other shows, is that you just never know when you're going to just find the perfect song. And a perfect song doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a hit record. To us in television, is that it works so incredibly well visually as you're seeing it performed that it impacts the audience. That's the important factor for us.
And we've tried to strip away the agenda factor of, we have this song and we know this writer, we know this publisher. We've really stripped that away to make sure just the only filter we have is the right song for the right scene.
Yeah.
And obviously the song discussion is of a great importance to the publishers in the house. The record labels, on the other hand, are looking for source cues and for usage in the background. So can you talk a little bit about the opportunities that are there? And
they're all over the place. And most of the show is at some kind of party or some bar after somebody just performed. So there's tons of opportunity, and I have to say we've used, the majority of the music that we use obviously is Big Machine, but then the independent world, we really try hard to find bands that are based here in Nashville and that are playing gigs around here in Nashville, and those are the bands that we like to try to use as often as possible.
Maybe you mentioned the Wild Feathers.
Yeah, we had the Wild Feathers came and did a show for the writers' room, and the producers. I invited them over, and they did a little acoustic thing inside the writers' room. And the writers loved them so much that they want to figure out how we can get them on camera and in the show. So I said, well, once we figure out what their tour dates are, they're back in Nashville. But they're all guys that live here in Nashville and got together and ended up, getting a record deal and that just do great music. So, there's lots of on-camera opportunities as well for other bands, not just our characters. So I think, in general, I'm pretty proud of the fact that we've given an opportunity for so many independent, artists as well as songwriters.
You used one of ours that we ended up signing. We used
Yes.
Cadillac 3, which is a band that you guys might know in Nashville. They've morphed from American Bang, 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 Bang. And
Cadillac Black.
Cadillac Black, no, Cadillac 3. Karen Johnston is the lead singer, but we really wanted to sign them, and Frankie called me and said, I need a band. I need a real band, like authentic rock band that would really be playing on Broadway or Lower Broad. And I'm like, I have it. We want to sign them. So, it kind of helped me win the deal.
Yes.
So thank you.
I remember you saying it, you're in your kitchen and you're like, hey Scott, so can I sign these guys? And he's like, yeah, do whatever you want. And I was like, that's how easy it is. I want that deal.
It really kind of did work out. It really was kind of that way.
It was.
He loved them, but I was like, okay, this is great. So it actually helped me, so thank you all. And now they're in the studio today, recording. And we have more new music you could hopefully play
yeah,
some.
good.
So that segues nicely, Allison, to I'm really interested in, and I think the crowd is interested in understanding your involvement on the whole. I mean, it's not very often that the head of A&R for a label group such as Big Machine gets involved in the production of a TV series. I mean, this is kind of groundbreaking stuff. You know, at what point were you involved, and how involved were you in the initial A&R process, in the initial planning stages of the series?
Well, I don't know, if I get in trouble for this, I'm sorry, but I knew about it from Dawn early on, and I knew about it from you, because you were coming to town, and
Right.
you were talking, so I knew about it as people were coming to town, and of course, everyone wanted to get on everyone's radar, and Lionsgate was going to Scott, and I was at dinner one night at a friend's house in Nashville with Dawn, and she'd just come back from shooting the If I Didn't Know Better. And she was so excited. She was like, oh my gosh, this magical thing happened today. And I went back, I texted Scott that night, I was like, we really, really need to know about this show and be a part of it. And he was talking to you all, and then the pilot happened, and Frankie and Dawn came to show it to us. And of course, from the get-go, we loved it because the Eli Young Band song was in the very, very first few seconds, even if it breaks your heart.
I'll take that.
Thank you. And I mean, I think Scott was sold that minute because, I mean, I know he was sold. He was really taken, very, very, very taken with it. And we jumped in head first, I think, from that minute, didn't we? Like, I can't remember because it was such a whirlwind after that. I think we just jumped in head first, and it's been a really great relationship because we support the music, and it's interesting because there's the Hollywood aspect, and we have all of the muscle that Lionsgate and ABC can bring from a Hollywood and television perspective, and then we add our support as a record label with the songs on iTunes and all the marketing that goes into putting the songs on iTunes and all the marketing that goes into the 2 soundtracks we released. And we released The Other Side of Nashville, which was an EP that went to Americana Music. And our head of publicity, Jake Baston, who's right here, he works in tandem with ABC Publicity to exploit all of the music in the press and the media and secure reviews. And the television appearances that have been about music, Jake has worked in tandem with ABC to make sure that all of that, the music is exploited. He worked with ABC with The View when all of the characters, actors, artists performed in The View. So I think we just have brought all of our music muscle and kind of combined it with Hollywood.
Well, and the other thing too is that, you know, as writers in Hollywood, you know, they don't know what, you know, what does it mean to have, what's the number that means there's a, you know, you're number 1 on iTunes? We don't know that. So, you know, they'd be like, Allison, what kind of number do I need to put in the script here? Or can I get some posters of this person? Is there a way that I can get, you know?
Or they'll write in, the record's being released Saturday.
Yeah,
Records
no.
have been released on Saturday
Yeah,
for 35
well,
years.
one of my favorites was when you guys called and said, would this city really be, would they have
A tour city.
a tour city? And it wasn't.
Yeah,
You know,
because we
and
had
then-
like T-shirts made of it, like a Juliet Barnes fake tour, obviously, and so we called Allison. We're like, give us the city names that Taylor Swift would go to, so that we can have Juliet's like on that same kind of tour, because that's, you know, obviously the same kind of sales that we equip, you know, Juliet Barnes to have.
What was the loser town? Juneau, Alaska?
What was the
Leland.
last time? But I mean, how would you know though? You know,
Yeah,
like-
we wouldn't know that. I mean, we're, you know, well, the writers certainly wouldn't know it, and, you know, I think it just depends on, you know, there's a lot of stuff that we always try to run by them just to make sure that we are being as authentic as we possibly can, considering, you know, we're still a soap opera.
With the actors too, particularly on the pilot, someone like Connie Britton has never been in a rehearsal situation. So when we came up with the sideliners, the bands that are the guys and girls that make up her band that you see on camera, they aren't necessarily the people that have played the studio recordings when we record it. You know, her first question was, well, you were out on tour with Reba McEntire. What do you guys do when you show up, I mean, down to that, and that slowly gets integrated into their characters and makes them stronger performers or stronger music references.
Yeah.
Really helps the overall process.
I mean, you have to understand that they're actors that sing, but have never actively recorded music. So they don't know what it's like to be in a recording studio and what you would typically do in a recording studio. So these are all things that, I think like with all of us kind of really guiding it so that it feels authentic and that it looks authentic.
And Gunnar and Scarlett's character, I was in the studio when we recorded If I Didn't Know Better, which is from the pilot, the first duo they did that you referenced. And you have a British actor, an Australian actress, had never met until the day before. Buddy met them in the lobby and went through the song. It was a difficult song to sing, and when we got into our Ben's studio, we realized they had never had cans on to hear their voice. They'd never talked on a mic. I mean, sung to a mic. So it was amazing that it all came together in the way it has.
So that it's safe to say that the creative input from Big Machine has been much more than just music choosing.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess so.
I mean, in case anybody, I don't know if you went over the numbers, but the combined sales of the first two volumes of this soundtrack are 500,000 units.
And almost 2.5 million single song downloads.
Wow. So it's a substantial success.
And then
by any
some
definition.
exciting news too that I don't know if you all might know this, but in the UK, both of the soundtracks have sold over 100,000 units. In the UK, that's unprecedented.
Wow.
And just this week, Brad Turcott, who oversees all of our international marketing, he released a 4-disc box set of the soundtracks and all of the songs that were released on iTunes, and that's because the marketplace was hungry for it. And the way I understand it, in the UK, they don't carry music in all the places we do. It's unheard of to have it at a drugstore or a grocery store, and it's going to be available in all of those outlets, which is really rare.
And when we started, there were Glee and Smash as reference points that we got often. And the most amazing thing about seeing the success on the record side is, and integrated into the show, is we take somewhat of a mandate from the executive producers that we don't use anything that's been released before. So if it was a Carrie Underwood B-side in 2008, it's not going to be used in the show.
It's all unreleased, and
so, and if you look at it in contrast of Glee or Smash, these are songs that everybody in the world knows. Yeah, they may be done by cast, and those are in point, professional singers a lot of times that can act. We start with actors who can maybe sing, and somehow this all comes together. So it's been amazing, because to take a song that's never been performed with performers who are not record stars, country or pop or anything, and another point I want to make is the way we try and use music in our series is a lot different than others, in that we try and embed a song. So when Frankie finds a song, we may first see it on camera as they're writing the song. The next couple of episodes later, you might see that band or whoever's performing it the rhyme, and then it may be used as a literal source song on radio toward the end of the season. And so by the time it gets out on Big Machine, you got a triple use in some cases, and people really associate that song with the series.
And that's really, really helped the iTunes sales, because in your average TV show, you might just hear a snippet of a song, which is still amazing, because to have a placement in the TV show is amazing. But I think that's really key, is the show has been so great about taking, especially If I Didn't Know Better, that reappeared, and then Telescope, the Kate and Juliet song, and that's been so amazing, and a really, really useful tool for the label too, that you all can incorporate it in multiple uses.
Involved at all in the casting of this? I mean, obviously the actors have to be good actors, but they have to have an immense amount of vocal talent. You mentioned, Scarlett and Gunnar coming into the studio, putting cans on for the first time. How did you guys mitigate that side of the creative process?
You know, you quickly learn that you don't really have a say in the casting. You'd like to. And we did a pilot here that was unsuccessful. Lionsgate did a few years ago. I worked with T-Bone on it. And it was a show about a patriarchal family in Nashville, kind of like Carter's, or more akin to like Hank Williams and the family lineage. And we realized when we got here that we hadn't really paid a lot of attention to the casting. We just hoped that they would sing. And directors don't care if the actors can sing. They need a good performance. And we, even at the time, we were trying to introduce people who we knew may be able to act, but they were great singers and we could work with. So we had a cast that really couldn't sing. And it really affected the process. So this time, yeah, we dealt with Jeannie Bacharach, who cast the show, a lot more. We were able to see, I was anyway, a lot earlier, the Skype auditions and the YouTube, like some of these people were coming from out of the country, so.
Yeah, and I see every audition at this stage now that we're into season 2. So I see every audition of a person who's either going to be singing or playing an instrument, just to assess whether or not, how many lessons do I need to get this person? How much vocal time do I need to give them, just to kind of try to create the most authentic look as much as possible. So.
And Sam, who plays Gunner, was cast very first. And the very last person was Chip Estes, who plays Deacon, who was cast on a Tuesday and here working on a Thursday.
And Sam hadn't been to America until
That's right.
he
His
started
first trip
shooting.
was, yeah.
His first shoot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said you're at the mercy of the casting director, but you had mentioned I am personally a fanboy of Lennon and Maisie Stella. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they have the Cup song on YouTube. It's awesome. Go look at it. And they played characters, but I was always curious if this was a YouTube discovery, which would be awesome for them, or if this was something that was a very calculated.
I don't know how calculated it was. Before I got to know them, we had 2 other girls cast in the pilot, and then we did reshoots when they were hired. When I talked to the girls about it, their perspective was they did that YouTube girlfriend to get cast onto the show. Not that we found I had it totally backward in my head, because I knew about that YouTube, it seemed like around that same time we were doing the pilot. But they tell me they did it to get cast.
Like
Well,
push-pull
and as a
marketing.
funny Big Machine tie-in, Scott, my boss, was a judge on the CMT show County Duet, and we were the label affiliated, and their parents were in the top 4 finalists on the show. And I was the behind the scenes, music. I mean, I wasn't in charge of music, but I was very much behind the scenes because we were the label. And I fell in love with them as a family because they had moved down here for the show. They were living in a hotel with 2 girls, and one of the girls is the age of my son. And I just fell in love with them as a family. Came to my house for dinner because I fell in love with them. And then fast forward, back then on the show, they would have the girls there because they didn't have. The show would go till 11 or 12 at night, and these girls were so mature, and I would think they need to be asleep. And they would be sitting back there playing guitar, singing. They were the stars of the backstage area on the show. I mean, it was pretty unbelievable. And I remember, and their mom said to me that I forgot that I said this, but I was like, I'm going to tell someone one day that I met the next Dakota Fanning right here. And everyone fell in love with them. So it's funny, Scott and I were we had nothing to do with them being on the show, but it's just funny how it all came full circle.
And Mary Lynn, their mom, told me that they're weirdly talented, which is really the way I look at it.
Yes.
They're like weirdly talented. I mean, when they sing, it's
And
great.
it's on their terms too. And even when they were, at that time, they were like 4 and 7. And they came to my house, and I was like, I have a little kid guitar, and they picked up a real guitar and started playing it and harmonizing. And I'm like, this is weird in an amazing way.
Kind of caught lightning in a bottle, sort of.
And they're an amazing family. They are doing it 100% for music and creativity, not at all for the stardom.
Well-
And Frankie may want to talk about, like, there's challenges when we
Yeah.
find songs for them.
There's big challenges. We, Mary Lynn is, rightly so, a very strict mother when it comes to what the girls can sing about. So lyrically, finding songs that are not talking about too explicit things it's actually a really hard task. So if you're a publisher out there, we need songs that are general and sweet. And they actually did their cover of Telescope. Mary Lynn had said that they got a lot of slack from their fans because one of the lyrics was in my bed, and so from that point on.
And they bunked that. We had to change
Yeah, we had to change our lyrics. It's always a challenge to try to find really great songs for these girls to sing, and when we had the opportunity of them doing a cover, and we wanted it to be something that was kind of out there and on the charts right now, going through the songs, trying to find lyrics that are appropriate for their age was tough. I mean, it was a really, really tough find. And when we came across Ho Hey, I was like, it's perfect. There's nothing in it that's bad. They've got to sing this song.
And everybody knows it and they hate it by now, so
Yeah.
it's time for your version.
And I don't know, Allison, maybe you can correct me, but I believe it's our #1 downloaded song that we have from the show, is them doing that version of Ho Hey. And I even got a call from the label saying that the Lumineers have even ticked up after that use.
So with it being such a challenge to find music for them, and obviously the other music for the other characters in the show, what advice can you guys offer to our audience here today on the best way to get music and or sound recordings to you guys for consideration? What would be the best path of?
Dropbox. Email me a Dropbox. And we listen to every single thing that comes in. If you don't hear from us as, like it's something that we can immediately use, if I've liked it, it goes in my list of songs that, I'm just waiting for the right story.
She will keep anything she loves.
Yes.
She will keep, her office is amazing. I've never seen more music ever in my life than in her office. So if you send it to Frankie and she likes it, I promise you she will keep it.
I hoard music, and if I can't use it for this, I'll find something else that I can use it for. So.
And sometimes it takes a long time.
Yeah.
And it's just not the right story. TV writers don't want songs to tell their story. We have to support it, but they're the writers.
And I go to the writers' room, and I sit with the writers. We talk about the upcoming stories. We talk about what the music needs are going to be for that particular episode, or what they're thinking about. And they'll ask me, well, do you think this would happen? Do you think we could do something like this? It's the process with music is so, I guess, embedded in our world now on this show that it is its own character, and we work really hard to keep the integrity of that music and doing right by our artists, which are our actors.
Do you prefer for people to sing like a pointed approach? Frankie, this would be perfect for Connie, and this.
You can
are
do
you looking for a
that.
specific range?
You can do that, but I'm gonna just listen to it and base my own feelings on it. The one thing that I would suggest is really watch the show and learn the kind of music that our characters are doing in order for you to send the right stuff. I mean, and I would say, as much as we are utilizing a lot of the, it's all country writers, I wouldn't necessarily consider a lot of the music like country.
No, not at all.
I think that, some characters lean more country than others. Like, I don't consider Scarlett and Gunner too country. I would consider them more indie folk.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you take a song like If I Didn't Know Better, which was J.P. White and A2IM, and so half the Civil Wars, but never written for the Civil Wars. If you hear a song like that, that is in no way really country structure.
Yeah.
It's a frame, and whoever's voice you put in that, it becomes that genre. It could easily be a mid-40s jazz type song. So those kind of songs work really well because it gives us a frame. And the other thing that I would say is, and I'll give T-Bone the credit, really, we started getting demos and that from all over because, and they were very produced. Not overproduced, but they were demos. They had a production sound to it, and really, we've been able to strip that away, especially with Buddy this season, where we try and get just a vocal,
Guitar
piano or
vocals, all
vocal
we need.
guitar, because we utilize different producers for different sounds at different times for the characters, and we want their interpretation of it. So the simpler, not simpler song structure, simpler production-wise. So it's just the song.
And for me, some of the songs that I sent last season were ones that I had loved but would never find homes on my current commercial country artists, which, you know, there's the bread and butter songwriter who shows up to work every day, and thank God they do, and their goal is to write a hit for Tim McGraw, or Rascal Flatts, or the Van Perry. And then I have equally as wonderful songs that come my way that just fell from the universe, that came from someone who just wrote a song for the sake of art. And both of those worlds collide a lot, but a lot of times they don't, and I'm a songboard. I love all songs, super commercial or super artsy. And a lot of the songs that I sent to the team last year were ones that I just loved but couldn't find a home. And it was so rewarding on my end to be able to have an outlet for these songs that, and some of these writers like Kate York, who I've loved for so long, and there were a lot of writers who got a lot of notoriety because of the show. So it's really been amazing for the creative community. It's been a huge boost to, I mean, I don't think you could even, I think the good that you've done for the community is yet to be seen, because there's some writers that are famous now because of it.
Well, and I think that's the other, you know, ABC has an online series called On the Record, which really showcases the songwriter. So once a song is recorded and put into the show, we will, you know, select specific performances. We will reach out to those songwriters, have them do their performance of that song, then bring in our actors and have them do their performance. So it's a series that you visually get to see the face of that songwriter. And so many songwriters don't ever have a face. It's just a name that you know. And you know, this show, I feel, does what they do the best, is that it showcases the songwriter more so than an artist per se.
Well, and even Russell had commented when we talked earlier, you've got that triple threat of person writing the music, person practicing the music, person performing the multiple cues, if you will, for the music.
And you know, you see the three of us, and we're the face of Nashville today. But really, you know, I go to set quite a bit now, and Frankie does too. And it's a lot to do with the actors who are singing the music. But when you go on to production and you see 250 or 300 people working on a show, you quickly realize music's this part of this whole show. And even though it's a music show, it's a really big undertaking. And it's a train that we ride, we don't drive, you know? And it's a lot of people that take, a lot of very professional people, and these women are great at what they do. And it takes, everybody swimming in their lanes in a lot of, if you want to sense it that way, where literally there's 15 people, I think, right now that are per episode that are part of our music team in one way or another. They could be on set just monitoring performances. It's a vast thing.
Well, that segues nicely to my next question. Frankie, without putting anybody on the spot and without giving any specifics, with a non-musical series, as I know you've done tons of Army Lives and the like, I know budget is always a big concern with the music. Given that this series is really based music. Did you find that you had more leniency with that budget than for some of your other series? And if so, how did this affect your musical choices?
You're just given a number, and that's the number you have to work within.
That's the truth.
And here's your number, figure it out. So, you know, we just try to do the best that we can to find the best songs for the amount of money that we have. You know, I think every show is different. There are some shows that have a huge budget, and then there are some shows that have a very little budget. Like in particular, like on Magic Mike, I had the teeniest, tiniest budget on the planet, and you know, the music was so huge in that movie. There was 27 songs in that movie, and not one stitch of score. There was.
And by limiting your budget or limiting your parameters in some way, it really forces more creativity.
I agree. I mean, that you have to be more creative with the lower budget in order to get the perfect music that you need for it. You know, that's it just allows you to dig deeper, you know, in finding those special gems, which is why I save all of my music.
And she does.
We only have time for a couple of more questions, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. But I'm just curious, did you all expect this to be the vast success it was, not only as a show, but on the soundtrack side as well, or was that an afterthought?
Me? Yeah. Well, of course, everything that we set out to do, we want to be on a successful level. But I think from the minute Scott saw the pilot, I mean, you can't see that pilot and not think that something great is there. And the talent in the show was great, and the music was great, and the people loved it. The rating, I mean, I feel like it really was a perfect storm, and we were very, very, very fortunate that I mean, the cast is. I still look back and remember the first time I saw Scarlett and Gunnar singing If I Didn't Know Better. And that's a magic moment. Like, that's just beautiful. And then the chemistry of all the people, and when you hear Deacon singing Undermine with Juliet, like, I mean, those are magical moments. So you hope when you hear music like that, the Pollyanna in me who loves music hopes that when you hear something like that, the universe is going to love it too, and it's going to do well. And thank goodness it did. But our sales and marketing team at Big Machine's amazing, so they know what they're doing, and they have a great relationship with iTunes. And Kelly Rich is our Senior VP of Sales and Marketing. She worked with Target, so we had Target exclusives, and we had great positioning. And Jake had amazing press opportunities. So I think our office worked really hard, but we couldn't have done it without having the amazing characters and amazing music.
It really was kind of the perfect storm.
Yeah.
At this time, we'll open it up for questions. Anybody? No, she was just itching her head. In the back?
Yeah, can you define a step deal for everybody?
Oh, a step deal is you're negotiating a license to use the song, and depending on obviously the amount of money that you have, you can say, I'm going to pay you $2,500 now, and once the movie makes $5 million, I'll give you another $2,500, and then if it makes $10 million, I'll give you another $2,500, and so on, up to what I would say is kind of like the total of what the song really should have cost me if I had actually had the money. So if you feel like the song is a $20,000 song, then you know you would have however many steps it took to get to that point. And you know, as a movie company, you would want to basically kind of say, you know, the movie cost $5 million to make. Obviously, we're not in profit until we've made $10 million. So you would then start your step deal at $10 million.
Would you say that step deals are becoming more commonplace today?
You know, it's very common in indie world. You know, like if you're, you know, Magic Mike, believe it or not, was an independent made movie. It was only released by Warner Brothers. And, so it was an independently filmed and made movie that was funded by the producers of the movie, Steven Soderbergh, Channing Tatum, I think there were 4 other producers, and they, they kind of pooled their own money and said, okay, here's how much we can allot for music, here's how much we have to allot for production, here's how much the actors are gonna get paid. And, everybody kind of came to the table wanting to play ball, because I think obviously being involved in a Steven Soderbergh project is an amazing place to be. And, music felt like that as well. People wanted to kind of get highlighted in that movie because it had Steven Soderbergh's name on it.
Any other questions?
Is that the same way in TV? The step deals in TV shows?
I've never worked on a TV show where there have been step deals, because I'm not sure what you would base your sales on.
Success.
Your success. But television, obviously the fees in television are not as much as a film. Well, maybe nowadays. Sometimes I think like, wow, okay. Films at one time really kind of warranted major fees. Like if you were getting a main title use of a song and your song was big, you could make $250,000 on a main title song use, or an end title song. If it's just background music for 20 seconds, it's not as much. It depends on the use, and the same thing in television, it depends on the use. If it's 4 or 5 seconds, as some girl's walking out of a bathroom, it's not, it doesn't warrant as much as something that's being played over a montage.
So like, let's say you do the soundtrack. Let's say you get a license, and then you get the song and get the soundtrack. Is the fee higher on a soundtrack deal, or is it, you guys deal with mechanicals, or how does that work?
I don't deal with any mechanicals. That's a label thing. Basically, there's, there's a small upfront advance. It could be anywhere from $1,000 to be on the soundtrack album, because then you get royalties for the sales of that. And that, if that $1,000 gets docked kind of before you actually start seeing your royalties. That's different than an actual master use fee versus a sync fee. Those are, that's kind of like a one-time payment, and that's the end of it. But on a soundtrack album, you get, obviously depending on how well the soundtrack album does, you continually will get paid on that.
From my experience with soundtracks,
Yeah.
you've got, with a situation where you've got a master use and then a soundtrack, you get a flat fee for the master use, then you get an advance on the soundtrack, and a per track, per unit royalty up to the advance, and then royalties thereafter.
Okay.
Up to $1.50.
Totally.
And what would, for an unknown writer, if you wanted to use a full song for one of the actors to sing for a completely unknown person, what type of fee would you pay for that?
I don't know, I would say anywhere from like $2,500 to $5,000 for someone that's unknown. I think it really just depends. There's, when you're looking at a complete script and, I'm kind of tagging out the entire script going, I need a song here, 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 and here, and here, and all of that is coming from one place. It just depends on how all of that kind of levels itself out. They may say, oh, well, we have to have, some huge hit song in there, and that's going to eat up a ton of my budget. So how much more can I split out between the rest of the scenes that I have left in the show? So it just varies.
Can you reveal what your budget is for episode?
No.
The police are waiting backstage.
Yes. It ain't much. I can say that.
I was going to answer the question by either a loaf of bread up to maybe a melon.
Yeah.
But do you have internally, when you're doing a Lionsgate film, Russell, do you have kind of pressure from Lionsgate to use Lionsgate publishing, Lionsgate catalog?
First of all, I'll answer it in 2 ways. They don't let me touch films at Lionsgate. I'm just the TV guy. And
Lionsgate TV shows.
the other side is, well, what was the question?
Just how much of your own kind of music,
Oh,
Lionsgate
okay.
owns, do you end up using? You know, I know a lot of TV stations are now trying to kind of keep all the publishing revenue back into the, you know, they're paying it in to ASCAP and BMI. They're like, why shouldn't it get paid back out to us? So they're trying to use their own catalog.
Well, earlier this year, there was not a big announcement or anything, but we sold our publishing assets to Warner Chappell, so there's no like agenda for me to get things that we own or control in there.
And I can tell you, I've pitched music to you through the years, and you've actually usually liked the cooler, hipper indie things more than the.
Probably.
No, but you never, and Frankie doesn't, neither one of you have an agenda at all. You just want great music.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
I have one in general about TV, and maybe it's not appropriate for the panel, but I'm always curious as to how these projects come to be. I mean, I know, like a Broadway play, I mean, I kind of know how that process happens. So if somebody has an idea for a show, like in Nashville, what is the process in order to bring that to fruition?
Well, there's no kind of easy answer to that, but to give a couple of examples, like we do the show Nurse Jackie, and Nurse Jackie was based on an actual nurse in New York City's notes, and then developed into a TV show as a result, and then cast Edie Falco, and it went from there. You know, usually it'll be just a spec script. Sometimes we'll take pitches that are fully realized. We want these people to exec producer. It comes as a package where all the principles are identified. So I've seen it come in a lot of different ways. I sit in on pitches a lot of times.
Sometimes they'll just come in and say, hey, I have this idea for a show, but I don't know how to do it. And they'll just come in, they'll have the idea, and then everyone goes, yeah, I really like that idea, develop it. And then you figure out, like, okay, I need a script, I need who's going to be involved. So then you kind of like, you know, work on it, then come back, do another big pitch, here's what I figured out, and then you pitch to people at studios.
Well, I guess a follow-up question would be, now that anybody can have their own TV channel on YouTube, how is that affect, now that, you know, like, anybody can have their own record album now and have it distributed on iTunes, now that anybody can create their own television show and put it on YouTube, how is that affecting the industry in general as far as the pitches are concerned? Because we're starting to see original programming on YouTube by the XYZ channel.
Well, do you mean like with Amazon or Hulu doing individual, or are you talking YouTube?
No, I'm talking about YouTube, but people have their own YouTube channels now, and they're doing their own.
But just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going through now what we went through in the record business when the whole digital revolution happened. Anybody can have, you know, in 20 years ago when I entered, there was like 6,000 or 12,000 new releases a year. Now there's 120,000 new releases a year because anybody can do it. And you're starting to see that now on television. I just wonder how that's affecting.
But well, Kevin Spacey had an address to like the UK Television Council or something a couple weeks ago that I saw. And he's got a show called House of Cards that he did, I think it was a $100 million deal for 2 seasons of his TV show with Netflix. And Netflix, of course, is the all-you-can-eat model, right? And we've got a show on there, Orange is the New Black. And his point was, if you compare that kind of model to the TV network programming model, he gave the example of like, there were 141 pilots made last season. 13 shows lasted through that, and only a handful are still on the air. Ours is one of them. He said this year we're doing 156 pilots. We don't know yet what's going to go, but the ratio of getting it into that keeper pile, he said the networks have spent $300 to $400 million to do these one-off pilots, where he has a guaranteed show now. It makes him look really smart on the deal he made. You know, it's fun to analyze those because like that's a new platform, the Netflix, and like for me, I'll watch a show like Breaking Bad or something like a hard-hitting drama over a weekend. I'll group them together and watch them that way. Arrested Development, I don't think they did that real well with. They put it out there and they don't give ratings information, but I'm not sure comedy works in that kind of format. Drama sort of does. You're so hooked on the serialization of it, you want to keep eating, you know? Where comedy's kind of like a combination of one-off storyline. It depends on the show.
Well, and I think it just promotes more competition. You know, obviously, you know, I think even with the cable networks that are doing more programming, like the HBOs, the Showtimes, and those shows are huge competition for the standard network show. NBC, CBS, ABC, those. Everybody has to kind of step it up if you want to be seen and you want to be heard. And I would say that with any independent artist as well, you know?
I mean, we're getting to be known as the company that networks take gambles on to kind of, when they want to rebrand. We did Mad Men for AMC, it was the first original programming. We're doing one for Hulu. Hulu's got a couple shows already that are original. We're doing one for E! Entertainment right now, and one for WGN, which is like WGN Superstation out of Chicago. Used to be like Mary Tyler Moore shows and Dick Van Dyke marathons. And they are a network now and have the carriage around the country and the power where we're delivering original programming to them. So really could be a brilliant show. And I know Amazon, we're not doing anything with Amazon, but Amazon's looking for original programming. So yeah, even within cablers, the competition is going like this.
Yeah.
One last question, and then that's all we've got time for.
I'm Trudy Larks, I work for Allison Entertainment. We did a study just recently about consumption habits. Actually, we just finished nailing it about 2 weeks ago. And one thing that we see is, we used to ask people how they want to consume their entertainment, and we go to the 3-screen model, the television, the computer, tablet, and the mobile model. How are you working with trying to make everything available on all 3 screens so that people can take those things with them wherever they go?
I mean, I'll jump in just to tell you that ours is a model more like a record label's relationship would be to a distributor. We make it, and then ABC, in this case, distributes it. So it's really up to the network home to identify their audience and grow it. Like I was part of the testing a little bit with the ABC model. I know they took the show and I think they showed it to 250 people in Chicago. And I remember laughing at the #1 negative that came back. Any guesses? Do you notice?
The name Nashville?
Name Nashville. It's like, well, duh, they live in Chicago. They probably want to call it Chicago. And we really fought for it, rightly or wrongly, because we kept going back to Dallas. Dallas was a pit before Dallas, the TV show, kind of helped identify what that show was, and people have a preconceived notion of what Nashville is. That shouldn't be held against it. We should all have the responsibility to show what Nashville really is. And so we kind of got by the network. I'm not sure how.
It certainly goes without saying that the show has helped kind of define how the rest of the United States and the world views Nashville. And so I thank you all for your hard work on that. Let's get a round of applause. Also, big thanks to A2IM and Seat Tank. Everybody will be around if anyone has any direct questions that didn't come up in the question and answer section. Please don't hand them CDs.
Give them to Randall.
And the bar is now open.
Everyone's been waiting for.
Frankie, no, it's okay.